So one thing we all worry about when we keep fish tanks is, especially when we keep fish tanks in areas that are prone to power failures or storms, whether it's a winter storm or a tropical storm, tornado, etc. If you have more than one tank, like I do, you're always gonna be worried about, how is it that we're gonna keep these fish alive when the power goes out and we have hours and hours of no water movement in their tanks, and their water oxygen level drops, and they can easily start dying off. Sometimes temperatures can be a problem. If you live in a cold place, it can get really cold. If you live in a hot place, it can get really warm for some fish. Although the warm weather is not really much of a problem for most people. So you always got to have a plan, So there's a few things out there that you can get. There's battery operated pumps, the same ones that they use, air pumps that they use for keeping bait alive. So there's USB power pumps. There's battery backup type pumps, air pumps that they sell now. You can buy on Amazon. At one point, a few years back, before all these pumps were available, before actually the USB power and the battery operated pumps were available on Amazon the way they are now, I had another idea to keep these tanks running. So it was I think it was like 5 years ago. So this battery is a marine deep cycle battery. And I'm charging it right now, even though I have a generator. I'm charging it right now because hurricane season is around the corner for us here in Florida. And I want to be prepared. So what I did back then was I lived in an apartment, and I had a couple of fish tanks. I had I'd say 3 or 4, and couldn't run a generator. It's against the condo board, and you can't, it's dangerous to run a generator in outside the apartment balcony or something like that. So what I did is I ran an inverter. The one I ran that time was a little stronger than the 400 watt you're seeing here. And I connected it to the deep cycle marine battery, which is charging right now. You got to have one of these if you're going to buy a battery. You got to have they call this a battery maintainer. So it keeps the battery charged. And also, you don't want to put a battery on the concrete floor or anything like that. It discharges quickly when you do that. So protecting it with a plastic enclosure, as you can see there. That's what I've done through the years, and it still works. We had a hurricane a couple of years ago, which I've used the battery again before I had the generator running. So I went ahead, had it charged up, running when I had the hurricane happen a few years back. I had the inverter running, and I plugged an extension cord with 2 or 3 outlets at the end of it, and I had the tanks, probably 3 tanks, 4 tanks maybe, all the pumps, filters on the tank kept running. I didn't need a heater, so I had just the filters running, very low wattage, and running the filters helped the tanks. The water circulation helped. I didn't lose anything. I had saltwater tank and freshwater tank at that moment. So these are my tanks at the moment. I just showed you the saltwater tank. And I have a little bit more tanks this time around. I have a bigger place. So the generator that I did buy does have enough wattage to run the whole house. So once a storm passes by, I can go ahead, start the generator, and power up these tanks. If the house is warm enough, you don't need to run heaters. Heaters can draw 300, 400, 500 watts every time they turn on. So you don't want to do that. If you're running a generator just for the tanks, you should be okay. But if you're running a generator for the whole house, you gotta take that in consideration. So everything that's running in the house is going to draw power. So the watts are important. Now the pumps that we have on these tanks, they don't draw that much. These overhang filters maybe 20, 30 watts. The lights 20, 30 watts, depending on the size, of course. An air pump with a sponge filter, that's not going to draw a lot of power. These small heaters that we have on these tanks, 100-watt heaters, not really a big deal. If you have bigger tanks, 200-watt, 300-watt heaters, then it starts to matter. So having a little battery or a marine battery, carp battery running, and an inverter attached to it might help, but you're going to run the power of the battery out. The juice is going to run out quicker the more stuff you attach to it. So just think about the basics. You don't need to run lights. You don't need to run a heater if the room is warm enough. Just make sure your water is moving. That's it. These tanks, these smaller tanks, for example, they shouldn't be much of an issue. Even this 75 shouldn't be much of an issue. The bigger the tanks, the bigger your equipment, the more power draw. So take that in consideration, especially now, hurricane season is about to start. So if you're in the U.S., in the southeast side of the U.S., that could be a problem if you're not prepared for it. So it's a good time to get ready for it. All right. Thank you. See you again. So this is what I'm doing to keep this fish tank alive. It's a marine grade battery. I let that run. It ran for like an hour and 15 minutes. Power inverter, 800 watts. Got a pump running. Hang on back filter running. Another wave or another pump running. I turned off the protein scanner. And there's movement in the water. I don't have the lights running. And this same inverter run a power cord to my freshwater tank. And this one is running the hang on back filter. Hoping they stay alive. Let's see how long I can run that battery for. I have another tank running here. Basically, it's one of these little pumps, battery operated pumps. Yes. There's hardly any fish in there, but it's a hospital tank. But there is some shrimp, some plants.